Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. Today I have a new book review for you for Goosebumps SlappyWorld number 4, Please Do Not Feed the Weirdo by R.L. Stine. I like this a lot. I thought it was very good. I would say it might just barely be behind I Am Slappy's Evil Twin, which is the third book of the series, when it comes to being my favorite so far from that series. I like this a lot. I thought it was a really fun, kind of different type of Goosebumps book. Very much like Attack of the Jack, the second book in the series. It felt so different from what I'm used to Goosebumps being like. A lot of different stuff. Really different compared to most Goosebumps stories. I'll get more into that as the time goes on throughout the review. A lot of little change-ups from what I'm used to seeing with the Goosebumps formula we typically have. Where do I even start with this? I guess I'll start with the story. Basically, a couple of kids and their parents, it's a brother and sister and their parents. The main character is actually the brother. They go to kind of this carnival type thing that's going on in their town. I don't know if it's like a year-round type thing or just for this time of the year, like a summertime type of thing. This kind of has a summer feel to it for the whole book's tone in general and the setting, from what I could tell. But essentially, they go to this carnival thing. The two siblings get on an actual a ride, and the thing actually breaks down. They are given some candy bars by the guy who owns this carnival park thing. And they happen to be wandering around by themselves, and they come across kind of like a caged, well, just a cage in general that you'd put animals in, that happens to have a young boy in it. Like a young teenage boy that's wearing jeans and like a flannel shirt or whatnot, I guess. They happen to see a sign that says, "Please do not feed the weirdo," just like the title says. And apparently, when they feed this young man, he grows into a green furry monster, kind of like a bear, like this picture here. I always thought that was blue fur, but it's not. It's green fur. Whatever. But he turns into a big old monster, who I guess is the weirdo, but never really called a weirdo except for that sign in the title of the book. But anyway, every time he eats, he throws up orange vomit everywhere. Every time that he eats. Kind of like Bim from, what was that one Goosebumps Horrorland book? Whatever that one Goosebumps book is with the orange alien on it. I cannot remember the title right now. It wasn't that great of a book. But this is kind of the same situation here. Kind of the same orange vomiting thing going on. But it turns into the big old beastie looking thing. And it breaks out of the cage and it gets out. Right? And it just kind of rampages the city. That's pretty much this book. And the family, they're kind of stuck in the middle of all of this. For some reason, this creature keeps finding them and finding their house and whatnot. And that's kind of the whole story, honestly. It's about 135 pages long, very different from other Goosebumps books in that regard alone, but then you have other things that come into play into the story. For example, the guy who owns the park is kind of a character that gets tied in very heavily, trying to help the family figure out how to capture this thing. By the way, this creature, the weirdo, actually can shapeshift too, so it can look like other people, and that's pretty much all it shapeshifts into, is other people's identity. It can mimic their voice and everything else, so you'd never know whether it's him or not. By the way, the creature weirdo thing's name is Robbie. One of the other weird different things that this does that Goosebumps books typically don't do is that the parents actually believe the kids, the main character kids. The parents help them try to catch this thing at times. Like I said with Attack of the Jack, this kind of has this bigger than Goosebumps feel. A lot of the old books, typically from the classic series from back in the 90s, typically had a very small scale story, very small, kind of just kids, brother and sister, cousins, something like that, in a house dealing with some kind of creature, some kind of anomaly that's happening to them and their family. You know, nothing really too big. You might have a camping story, which there's like 50,000 Goosebumps camping books. I reviewed all of them, at least most of them. You kind of have a big focus on things like that, you know, just kind of small scale stories. But I've noticed with SlappyWorld, almost every SlappyWorld book that I've read so far has been a bigger scale story where they have kind of a focus on almost like a big movie budget type thing. You know, kind of instead of having like a smaller scale story that could, at that time, at the 90s, be adapted into these short episodes for the TV show. This is very different. It's very odd to me to read Goosebumps and see kind of a big, broad scale that feels more like the Goosebumps film from 2015. This has that same feeling. And the tension builds. I actually like the tension. It's not really a scary book, but it's kind of a fun, tense book because you don't know where Robbie is or who he could possibly be disguising himself as. His addiction to food and his reaction to food is really fun to read about. I know it probably doesn't seem like I have a whole lot to talk about with the book, and honestly, I really don't. I don't have a whole lot of stuff to talk about. It's more about, this book is more focused on events rather than scares, rather than comedy and humor, rather than plot point by plot point. It's not really like that. This book is mostly just kids stuck in the middle of this situation, or this family stuck in the middle of this situation of some kind of beast, some kind of creature, some kind of whatever the weirdo is, whatever Robbie is, being loose in the town and destroying things when he eats. It's kind of weird. It's a weird premise, but it was a fun story. I actually really, really liked it. I recommend it. The cover, not the most beautiful looking cover that Goosebumps has ever had. I still don't understand why we have a box and not a cage. Doesn't make any sense to me. I think the ending is pretty decent too. I actually think it's probably one of the better endings out of all the SlappyWorld books I've read so far. Even compared to the first book of the series, Slappy Birthday to You, I think this is one of the more satisfying endings. Kind of a very quick ending, but a very satisfying, in my opinion, ending. There's not really a whole lot to say about the book. If you can tell, I don't really have too much to say. I've been reading this for a few days, had a blast reading it. It was really fun, really enjoyable. That's really all I have to say. It's a fun filler type book. I know the next book is Escape from Shutter Mansion, but however I'm going to start reading the Christmas books from Goosebumps after all the different series that it had starting now, tonight, before I go to bed. So I'm going to start reading some of the Christmas books and whatnot, and trying to find some reviews to gather together for you guys with that. So it'll be a while till I get to the next book. I don't know if I'll read that before the end of the year. I'm not really sure. God willing, I might, but I don't know. I kind of want to read some Give Yourself Goosebumps books. You know, I'm really, really craving some of that. That was some fun stuff. Always have a blast pretty much with those. But yeah, other than that, please do not feed the weirdo. Good book. Really good book. Really enjoyable. I'm sorry I'm being weird. It's really late at night. I'm really tired tonight. I just wanted to get this review out there. If I had to rate Please Do Not Feed the Weirdo on a 5-star basis, I'd give it like a high 4 out of 5. It was really fun, really enjoyable, really silly with the whole vomiting thing that keeps happening. It's kind of like a weird 90s gross out thing that Goosebumps has reincorporated for this. So I thought it was kind of cool in Stein's regard. Very quick read, very fast-paced read too. I think that's one thing to talk about with this book too. It's very fast-paced compared to most Goosebumps books I've read. So I thought that was a little odd, a little different, you know, changed up the pace a little bit. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this book? Put your thoughts and comments down below, guys. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it, about my review, about the book itself, about SlappyWorld as a total. I've heard some people tell me that this is actually their favorite book from SlappyWorld currently. I think there's almost 10 books. There's about 12 or 13 announced and that are coming out in total. But right now I think we're like right at 9 or 10 officially released to the public. So I'd like to know if this is your favorite so far from the series as well. I could totally see somebody saying this is their favorite from the SlappyWorld era, of Goosebumps. It's good. It's a really good one. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Put them down below, guys. Thank you for watching. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today, and goodbye.